So next I'm going to ask Dr. Bob Lahey to come up on stage. Bob is one of the top psychologists in the world. Bob has a very vigorous and important practice in Manhattan, in New York City, where he has a number of therapists working with him. Bob is the current president of the Academy of Cognitive Therapy and, I believe, of the International Association of Cognitive Psychotherapy. So he's very active throughout the world in teaching and in sharing information about cognitive behavior therapy. His really important book for the general public is called The Worry Cure, and he's going to talk tonight based on things that he's written in the book, The Worry Cure. So, Bob.
What we know about worry and how you can help yourself deal with your worries. So we're talking about 7 steps to overcoming your worry. And if you think about the things that you're worried about, you're like a lot of worriers. You kind of go from one worry to another worry. What are people going to think of me? Will I make a good impression? Will I make a fool of myself? Will I say something stupid? And if I say something stupid, will they get the punchline? Did I make a mistake? Do I have a dreaded disease? A lot of my patients who are chronic worriers will, search on Google for, cancer and brain tumor and that sort of thing. Will I lose all my money? Which, of course, is probably true. What if something happens to my kids or a loved one? What if my partner leaves me? What we know about people who are chronic worriers is that they go from one worry to another worry over and over and over again. And they've been worriers for years. People who are chronic worriers will often say, I've been a worrier all my life. So, just imagine if we were trying to make sense of why you worry. You think about the nature of your own worry. And, just imagine if we had somebody who came down from Mars and they never knew how to worry, and you were going to teach them how to worry. You're going to write a rule book on how to be a good neurotic worrier. You probably are familiar with some of these rules. Okay? Think about your own worries. If something bad could happen, if you can simply imagine it happening, then it's your responsibility to worry about it. So the minute a thought comes into your head about some terrible thing that could happen, you've got to really pay attention to that thought and focus on it. The second rule, and you may want to write these down just in case you think you're not doing a good enough job of worrying. The second rule is don't accept any uncertainty. You need to know for sure. So if you go to see a doctor and the doctor says, no, actually it doesn't look like you have cancer, why should you believe that doctor? After all, what do doctors really know? And where did she get her medical degree anyway? So you have to get certainty. Treat all of your negative thoughts as if they're really true. So if you think you have a dreaded disease, then treat that as if it's an actual fact. Fourth, anything bad that could happen is a reflection of who you are as a person. So if you give a party and there's somebody sitting in the corner moping and feeling bad, it's probably because you're not a good host or hostess. It's all up to you. Every problem in the world is up to you. Fifth, failure is unacceptable. So if you're a good worrier, you'll accept absolutely no failure, which means that you will absolutely insist on perfection and 100% success. Sixth, get rid of any negative feeling immediately. So if you have any negative feelings at all, you feel sad or anxious or confused or ambivalent, you've got to get rid of that feeling immediately. And if you don't, you should probably worry about it. And seventh, treat everything like an emergency. So if you don't have the answer right now, that's an emergency. You actually need the answer right now. So you could also Google, you could seek out reassurance, you could call your doctors, you could, try to figure out what the answer is right now. And if you don't, then you should panic. Now you probably think, here I've done this extensive research on worry, and we have all the rules, and if you follow these rules, you'll probably be a first-class worrier. But did I leave something out? Maybe I was just trying to be facile and funny and witty, and maybe I left something out. You really can't trust your memory, can you, if you're a worrier, which is one of the reasons you worry. You keep looking at your memory and say, did I forget something? You wake up in the middle of the night and you have a brilliant thought, and then you worry about you'll forget it if you go to sleep. Well, I actually forgot to mention there's an 8th rule. I forgot to mention you should worry about worrying. Because once you start worrying, in order to prevent bad things from happening, or to be prepared, or that you won't be surprised, or so that you'll be responsible, once you start worrying, then you realize you're going crazy. And you begin thinking, my worry is out of control, I've got to stop worrying. So you're in a catch-22, spinning around in your chair at a land speed record, worrying because you need to worry to be prepared, and having to stop worrying because you think the worry is going to drive you crazy. If any of this is familiar, you can please stand up and leave now. Anyway, you forgot to say to yourself, all of this worrying is going to drive me crazy, give me a heart attack, ruin my life completely. The 8th rule, now that you've worried, you've got to stop worrying completely or you'll go crazy and die. So you feel your worry is uncontrollable and dangerous. How many of you recognize some of your own patterns here? You raise your hand. What's interesting is that the research in cognitive therapy on the nature of worry actually has illustrated that these are the processes that underlie chronic worry. You might wonder, why am I talking about worry if we're talking about depression? 93% of people who are chronic worriers also have another psychiatric diagnosis. And the most common psychiatric diagnosis that they have is depression. Either they have what we call major depression, which is that they're really, really depressed, or they have dysthymia, which is a low-level depression that goes on for years. And in fact, what we know is that for about 80% of chronic worriers, over a period of years, they eventually worry themselves into depression. So some diagnosticians actually think about chronic worry as sort of another form of depression. I'm going to outline 7 steps that I think you can take. You can actually begin doing these things today. If you think about what you're worried about, if you think about, you're worried about your your 401k, your stock portfolio, your kids' illness, your job, how you come across, whatever. I'm going to go through each one of these steps to think about what you can actually do to reverse your pattern of worry. I'm going to talk about worry. When I talk about worry, what I mean by worry is that you have these recurrent negative predictions about the future. So, somebody said, people are worried about the environment. I've never had a patient in my life who came in and said, oh, God, I can't sleep because of the environment. Now, all of us want to say we're worried about the environment, but we're probably not lying in bed thinking about it all the time. The most common worries that people have, in fact, are about relationships, about their family or about their personal relationships.